issue would be on very large lots. So on the typical lot in the town, if you meet all your setbacks, because most of the houses are building to the setbacks and they're not exceeding the 40%. So if you had a very large lot, that would be an instance where you may exceed that because you have a lot more internal space. You're still going to have the 25-foot front setback, 20 or 25-foot rear setback, and then the maximum of 10 foot. But if you had a 300-foot wide lot, you're going to have a lot of space inside those 10-foot setbacks.
So we have very few 300-foot wide lots, but we do have 100+ foot wide lots. Would it apply? Have we looked at that? Would it apply to 100-foot wide lot?
We haven't done any evaluation of those specifically.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be my concern. I think if you meet your setbacks, it seems odd that you have to come in and get a variance,
I agree.
no matter the lot size.
If you don't want to have a building coverage requirement, that is also an option.
Is there a way to put a thing that says, well, no, because then we don't have a limit on the massing?
I mean, really think about it like the floor area ratio. I mean, it's commensurate to that. It's just a different way to measure it to allow houses to be, as many stories as they're allowed to be. Whereas in the commercial, the floor area ratio counts each individual floor. The building coverage just counts
The block.
the block.
Yeah, but I think
But it's very similar
It's
to
less
FAR.
restrictive than the
Yes,
FAR.
it's less
Yes,
restrictive.
yeah.
That is correct.
less restrictive and consistent across
Yeah.
the rest of the zones. So
Yes.
to me, it's just creating consistency across the island.
How did this generate? How did this come about?
Requests and then
Requests
council,
from
requests
property
from
owners.
property owners, and then bringing it up to council, asking if they felt that this was an issue, because it actually began, I think maybe with the beach bar, because they wanted to be counted by, I think they wanted to be counted by building coverage originally. And we were like, no, you're a mixed use. That is not an option. You're something different. But we brought it to council to say, do you agree? How do you want this covered? What do you think is appropriate? And they basically said that they would like houses to be single family and 2-family to be measured the same way across the island. And that would be the 40% coverage application.
So what happened with the beach bar?
The beach bar is requesting a CPD to exceed their floor area ratio.
And it's mixed use.
Yeah, it's mixed use.
So is there a process, Sarah, since this was opening it up, council saying, let's find a better way to deal with some of these appropriate requests that are banging up against FAR? Is there a way that you can build an administrative approval that says if there are no other variances being asked for and all setbacks are being met, that this type of request to exceed 40% could be administratively handled versus procedurally handled through the entire process?
I guess my question would be, then why have it?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
what is the intent of having this if our only concern is the setbacks and the height?
Yep.
If those are the boxes, if those are your parameters, do you need the other thing? I think the intent was for it to cover, I think that the intent when this was created was probably for those larger lots.
Yes,
And to
for
ensure
massing.
that, yeah.
The massing issue, which is, we always talk about, with all due respect, Bonita Beach Road. I mean, as you go through there, it's like, it's a canyon.
Yes.
And this was intended to.
Yeah, it's sort of a
hopefully curtail.
backstop.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, it's a backstop.
So, it would be possible to do that. I just would question whether it's something that is actually needed if we're going to be handling it administratively. And what would our criteria be for approving it?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sarah? Okay, let's open the public hearing. Would anybody care? Albert? As a Florida State fan, I am going to ask.
Oh.
Go Gators.
I still love you, Nita, though. Yeah.
Good.
Not to the end of November, though. Albert Danvers, for the record, architect, studio AD. I walked in a little late. Sorry about that. But I did catch the last few minutes of conversation. The reason this came about was Patrick and I came at the FMB meeting back in June, I believe, or maybe May, and we brought this up. And it did start with the beach bar as we started analyzing it. And we knew we were going to be going to a CPD, and you guys already went through that process of that to ask for that. But unfolding this with other clients who have Gulf front lots, we realized that in RM in downtown, you have to use FAR for even a single family house. And again, the FAR means if you take that ratio of 1.0 in like I Street, and you only can count that lot area that you can build on, not the land that goes all the way out to the Gulf. And you take that 1.0 floor area ratio, that counts for all of the floors. So that means someone trying to sell a house or property on a multi-million-dollar piece of property, you only can build a 2-story house, meaning ground and then one more above. Using a lot coverage made sense on single family homes only, as we do in RS zoning and RC zoning all right now. You know, like hibiscus houses, high Hercules houses, any of your houses that people live on right now already have lot coverage of 40%. We've been adhering to that. I was a little concerned when everyone was saying, why do we even have that? I'll let you know, every jurisdiction has lot coverage. Now, our house in city of Fort Myers off McGregor, we have 35% lot coverages. Depending on the lots in City Naples has like, I don't know, 16 different residential zoning districts. And all of them have different lot coverage ratios you have to adhere to. So I don't think that's the direction we wanted to go.
Yeah.
So right now, status quo, RSRC, we got to do 40% lot coverage. You have the 67% impervious, which is totally fine. This, again, came about with the Gulf front lots, and more specifically, the Gulf front lots that don't land on a estero and go all the way through to the Gulf. It's the lots that are behind the house on a estero to go there. When you do floor area ratio, I ran into a client who purchased a property on the south end and was given bad due diligence information from whoever they consulted with at first. And they thought they can build one, first of all, was past the 78, 74, whatever it is, the other line. Like, no, that's the blade that comes down. The other thing they realized was this is floor area ratio. And so Patrick and I are going through a variance with that, but we may not need to if this is in the process of changing. So that's fine. That restricted their house to only a 2-story house. And it's not fair if you go one lot over and they're an RC, you can do 40% lot coverage. But to take this up a little further, am I over?
Does anybody mind if Albert continues for a minute?
No.
I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. To take this a little further, I know you said it's hard to visualize. Maybe good, again, like I said,
visualized it.
okay, I think it might also good to kind of give you some scenarios graphically if you want to pursue this a little further, because it makes a difference on these lots. The 40% lot coverage is great if you're on land, on the land side of a estero. But when you get to the Gulf side, that 40% lot coverage in
All the way
section
down.
34-634, you still can't count lot coverage past that EC line. But it's consistent with your floor area ratio, which you can't count that line. So for residential purposes, there have been houses previously, currently in 23 after the hurricane, that are been using 40% lot coverage in RS and RC zoning that have been able to count the lot area beyond that 78 line and use 40% of that. It's very inconsistency when I'm seeing a lot of when I do searches for single family homes and see what they're going through. And this was part of the research we started realizing and say, how is this inconsistency happening? So that 40% on some of these small cottage lots is also restricted. So I guess the thing is, if you leave the LDC alone by definition, is this lot coverage that someone brought up here available to come out as a variance and say, look, 40% hurts us. Can we do 42% lot coverage? And if that's a possibility, then that takes care of it, because then you could deal with it for just the small sections, the small properties that have to come up for variances. And I have no problem with that, because some of these small lots, we have to come for variances anyway to reduce setbacks or show you what setbacks were there before. It's just be another thing we'd ask for. I just didn't know that lot coverage would be something that we could ask for through our variance.
We're going to find that out. Okay, Albert, thank you so much.
That's all I got.
I
If any other
appreciate
questions, let me
that
know.
very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has public comment? Come on up. How are you today?
Nervous.
Why are you nervous? Oh, for heaven's sakes, it's just us. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Penny Porter,
Hi,
and
Penny.
I'm the owner of 51 Pearl Street. Now, I know the variance hasn't come yet, so I'm not going to talk about that. I know
Okay.
I'm on the agenda. I'm going to talk specifically about this, this change in
In the
Lot
in the
coverage.
lot coverage.
lot coverage. I'm one of those, just for an example, I just want to piggyback on what the previous gentleman was talking about, in that I have a very large lot, but the buildable area is very small. And that presents a real issue when you're talking about lot coverage. And if you could use lot coverage and consider the whole lot, like for example, my lot is the impervious coverage in my application is under 20%. But because in the impervious coverage, they use the whole lot. But when it comes to lot coverage, they're only allowing us to use the buildable area, which is behind the CCL. So that then becomes a real issue, because now you've got a very small area. You're calculating a lot coverage that just doesn't work. So, if you're considering changing the rules, I might suggest that you allow the whole lot to be considered as a rate for the ratio of lot coverage, and not just the small buildable area. But that's all.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank
Now,
you.
that wasn't so bad, was it?
No.
Good. Hope to see you again.
She's
Yeah, I-
next on the agenda.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay, we'll close the public comment. All right, Sarah. So let's start with, let's answer the question. Is a variance available to someone who does not meet the lot coverage or wishes to exceed the lot coverage?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a yes. What about including the 40% calculation beyond the EC?
I did offer when we spoke about this at M&P, I did offer that as a suggestion to the town council. They did not feel that that was a good idea. They didn't think that we should. My suggestion was that you can utilize a percentage of it, because the way you can use the EC zoning district for density is one dwelling unit per 20 acres. So that's a tiny percentage of it. So there would be an option to use a small percentage of that larger EC area to allow additional building coverage. They did not think that that was an appropriate direction to go, especially considering that property owners did have the opportunity to come in and request a variance. And I do want to correct that the impervious
Impervious.
surface does not count the EC. It is the buildable area. It has to be the area where they can build whatever allowed use that is.
Okay. Okay. And then the whole lot calculation, just to address Penny's question,
The whole lot calculation would be problematic because
very problematic for beachfront lots.
yeah, because you would be able to pretty much
Right.
cover your entire parcel, which means you wouldn't be meeting any of your setbacks. I mean, in the instance, Penny's going to be coming before you. She's asking for a reduction in the setbacks, and she's asking for an increase in floor area, or sorry, building coverage. So you would also be getting variances for those setbacks. So I don't think that it is necessarily an appropriate request or an appropriate way to utilize the EC.
So what do you all think about a percentage of the EC as it is in other parts of the code being utilized, even if it's a small percentage? What are your thoughts on that? Don? Nothing. Can you hear me, Don?
All right. Yeah, I
That's
heard you.
okay.
Sorry, I was on mute.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think I can live with that.
How about you, Jim?
Yes.
Doug?
I think I'd rather ask for a variance if you need it, like keep it like it is, or the thought we have, but then, yeah, I could see, I need 42% or something of the buildable, but I'd rather do that.
Jane?
I think the fact that you're allowed to have a variance on it, that gives the avenue to get to that. So that's not just a given.
Mhm.
How about you?
I would concur. I think we need the percentage and there's a relief there. They can always apply for a variance.
John, do you agree?
I agree completely, and I'm all for consistency across all of the buildable lots.
Okay, so we'll just make that, we'll include that as a recommendation to the council, that they revisit that concept. Okay? All right. So now, could we have a motion to forward our,
To recommend approval and a finding of consistency with your comp plan.
yes, and to consider
Yes.
the additional use of a percentage of that EC? Would somebody like to make that motion?
I would move that, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second to find this consistent with the comprehensive plan, to move this forward with a recommendation to the council, and to have them reconsider a percentage use consistent with other elements of the code of the environmentally critical areas. This isn't a roll call. This is just legislative. This is just a free-for-all, right? Is there any discussion on the motion? I'd like to thank the folks, Albert and Penny. I'd like to thank you very much for your comments. It helped clarify things for me, so thank you very much. And any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So we go on. Thank you very much. The motion carries unanimously. The next item is Penny's VAR 202-40100. This is 51 Pearl Street. Before I begin, may I ask for ex parte communication? Don, do you have any?
No ex parte.
Okay. Jim?
None.
Doug?
No.
Jane?
Yes, I did a site visit and spoke with the owner. I also would like to comment that there was no advertisement sign on the property. And I don't think there was on the other one either.
Okay, I'll let Nancy comment on that as soon as we go through the rest. Jim, any ex parte?
None.
John?
I'm familiar with the property. It's across from where I live now, and we received various letters as well.
Okay. I'll just state for the record that I looked at it on Google Earth because I couldn't orient everything carefully, so I did a Google Earth search, but that's all I have. Nancy, could you address Jane's issue with the posting of notice?
I'm going to defer to staff as far as the requirements and if it was posted and perhaps removed or what the situation is. I'm not aware of that.
Would like to address that?
Jason Smalley with your Planning and Zoning Department. So I apologize. I wasn't aware that the sign was not put up on that site. If you would let me know just which ones you didn't see them on this time, I'll absolutely personally assure that they get put up for the town council one. And
I think 51 and Lagoon.
51 and Lagoon.
Yeah, I think it's really important because if we now have the power to, if everybody agrees and it doesn't have to go to council, that it really needs to be advertised for the neighborhood and for those that are driving by to be able to see it.
Right. We do send out the postcards.
Sure, I know. But I mean,
take your point,
you know, a lot of people, it goes to their north address or whatever. And if they're down here or you just don't see it, they just doesn't attract attention.
I will take responsibility
No
for that,
problem.
and I will ensure that going forward, we have them up, and for the town council meeting, I'll personally assure they get put on those.
Well, and the other thing was I'm looking at the property and there's no address on the building that's there. And I'm trying to figure out, is this building already built? Is this, you know, what is this? And then fortunately the owner was out in the lot and I was able to speak to her, but you know, I didn't know there was no address. So, and there's no street. So
Of course,
makes it
absolutely,
more
absolutely
interesting.
relevant.
Yeah.
I will, again, I apologize for that, and I will personally ensure it gets done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason.
Follow-up question for a second.
Yes, go ahead.
Directed to the attorney while you're still here. So are there any
you're not an attorney.
procedural violations we have because it wasn't posted?
That's what I was going to inquire. Oftentimes, the posting on the property is as a courtesy. The requirement is generally
The mailing.
the mailing. when you get to the town council level, then there are advertising requirements in the newspaper for rezonings and comp plan amendments. But
So
not
we're okay to
necess-
deal with it today as advertised.
I believe so. I just wanted staff, I mean, your common practice that is just as a courtesy to post it.
Yes, absolutely. That is true. But we do take LPA members' opinion on this, and we will make sure that that is posted in the future.
Thank you
But-
so much.
And the rationale for that is that the mailing ensures that those within the radius
Sure.
of the property receive it, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But with the signage, sometimes in inclement weather, it can be removed or
Mm-hmm.
mischief, occurring on the street. So
Absolutely.
mischief, yes, mischief. Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may, could we go back? I'd like to make a few comments
We
about
haven't finished the,
Yes, we have.
oh, we did?
about your agenda. The remaining items, you have 3 of them, and these are all quasi judicial in nature. And I just want to say a few words about quasi judicial proceedings. And these type of proceedings require our public hearings to comply with procedural requirements that have been established in Florida law and in our land development code. So these quasi judicial proceedings, they're less formal than proceedings before a circuit court, but they're more formal than the remainder of our meeting and the basic standards of due process requiring that notice be afforded to the property owner, that we apply the correct standards and sections of our code, and that your decisions in these matters are made on competent and substantial evidence that can be presented to you either verbally or in written form. Once you receive the testimony, you're going to evaluate it for each of these 3 items, and then you're going to draw a conclusion regarding whether the criteria that is in the land development code or in state law has been satisfied. Your decision should not be based on pure speculation or opinion, because the courts have considered those type of statements to not be competent and substantial evidence. Testimony by individuals who are qualified to be experts in a particular area of law or expertise have been recognized by Florida courts as providing competent and substantial evidence. Also, testimony by neighbors and residents who have fact-based information such as minutes, surveys, engineering reports, or testimony that is based on their personal information, their knowledge, things that they have visually observed, has been viewed as competent and substantial evidence by the courts. So those of you in the audience, if you intend to speak, please keep these matters in mind as well. And when you come forward, we would be asking that you state your name clearly for the record and whether or not you have been sworn in. I also want to add that you have a couple variance items on your agenda today, and a unanimous decision by eligible voting members of the LPA to approve those variances constitutes final agency action. Subject to a request by anyone for an additional hearing or review of the matter by the town council, if that request for the additional hearing is received by the town clerk within 10 days. So for purposes of efficiency, and because this is quasi-judicial in nature, we'd like to go ahead and dispose of a few matters. The first item applicable to all 3 hearings, as you've already discussed regarding the first item, is whether they have been properly noticed for today's hearing. So I defer to staff and the clerk.
Yes, they have been noticed.
Okay, and also the next housekeeping item we have is to ask if any of you have a conflict of interest that would prohibit you from voting on any of these 3 items. If you do, please disclose it at this time, the nature of the conflict, so we know that we have a quorum available to make the decision.
Does anyone have a conflict? No one, Nancy.
Okay. So again, because these proceedings are a little bit more formal than our typical meetings, we do ask that anyone wishing to give testimony today or presenting testimony that they be sworn in at this time. So anyone that would like to do that, please stand Members of the audience, raise your right hand and the clerk will administer an oath.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, all parties have been sworn.
Okay, Madam Chair, I think at this point we're ready for our first quasi judicial item. I'll go ahead and read the title if you like.
Sure.
Okay, this is variance 2024-0100 51 Pearl Street. This is for your consideration, LPA Resolution 2024-04. A resolution of the Fort Myers Beach Local Planning Agency approving with conditions variance 2024-0100, requesting variances from LDC Table 34-3 of 13 feet from the street setback for a front setback of 12 feet, a variance of 3 feet from the west side setback for a side setback of 4 feet 6 inches for the mechanical equipment and balcony, and another variance of 15.11% from the building coverage for a building coverage of 55.11% to build a new single-family structure in the RM zoning district for the property located at 51 Pearl Street, Fort Myers Beach, Florida, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Nancy.
You would want to qualify anyone who wishes to give testimony as an expert at this time.
Well, Jennifer has already been qualified by the town. Judith. Why did I call you Jennifer?
No
You
name.
kind of look like a Jennifer. And I hate to tell you this, but as soon as you will hear, as soon as I say somebody's name wrong, it just sticks. So if
Yeah.
I call you Jennifer again,
From now on.
I apologize.
If you're looking at me, I'll assume you mean me.
I will mean you, Judith. Okay. You've already been qualified as an expert being here with the town, correct?
This is my first time in a
This is our
public
first
meeting.
time here.
Okay. Well then, let's qualify you. Would you give us your qualifications?
Yes. I am a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners and a member of the American Planning Association. I have a master's degree in urban planning and an undergraduate degree in geography and have worked in urban planning for many years, 15 plus at this point. So
Thank you, Judith.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Could I have a motion, please, to accept Judith as an expert in her field?
I'll move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Is there any objection to that motion? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Is there anyone else who is going to appear as an expert in this case?
Just representing yourself.
No. Okay. Go ahead. Thank you, Judith.
Madam Chair, we
Yes.
do want to verify that the property owner, who I believe is present today, that she's received a copy of the materials that have been presented to you all.
Penny, have you received a copy of the materials that we have reviewed for your case? Here, come on up for a second.
She can-
All I received was a staff report. There was no attaching, like, there was no other materials attached to it, just a report.
Okay, so what we can do is, if one of our staff members can just share with her the materials that the LPA has received, so she's aware of those as well. And then
Nobody
we
has it
could
in writing.
start with the presentation, if you like.
Okay. So
Um,
Penny, Amy, are you going to give her something?
Judith.
I'm
Or- or-
okay. I'm okay.
Okay, so we just want to make sure that everything that the LPA has that they have read about your property, that you are aware of what they have read. So if they read something wrong, you'll be able to correct it.
Did you by chance review the agenda online?
I did not. I got an email saying that here's the staff report. I did not realize that there wasn't.
The staff report is
staff-
pretty much what
that's
is
it.
in the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay.
So
Then
Okay.
that's-
So
we
you've
just
reviewed
want to
it.
make sure to have a level playing field.
Okay.
Okay, I think
Thank you, Penny.
Judith will announce first, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Penny.
Okay.
We'll call you back up in a minute. I'd just like to add, I received an email from Roger Hamilton and from somebody else that I cannot remember, but Amy, you have those. I'm assuming they were distributed to all the LPA members, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
All
They
right,
were.
just to put that on the
There
record.
was one from Roger Hamilton and one from a Don Courier.
Yes, that's right.
There
Absolutely.
was just the two though. right?
Yes,
Just the two.
correct.
Do you have copies to share with our property owner?
I can forward them to her.
Okay.
Okay, Judith.
Good morning. This application is a variance for 51 Pearl Street. There are 3 areas in which the applicant is asking to vary from the land development code. The first is the minimum street setback of 25 feet. In this case, as you've already discovered if you've been to the property, it's not a true platted street fronting the
Yeah.
property, but the code is clear that it says street or easement, that you have to have that front setback. So in this case, that code section will apply to this property, even though it's an easement and not a true platted street. So they're asking for a variance from the front street setback, which should be 25 feet, and a reduction of that to 12 feet from the front setback. The second place is a variance from the side setback requirement, which should be 7.5 feet. The applicant is asking for that side setback to be 4.5 feet. And the overall size of the house exceeds the maximum lot coverage if the lot coverage ordinance that you just spoke about, if that becomes approved by town council, limiting to 40%. This property as presented is a 55.11% lot coverage. So it's about 15% over the maximum. It does also exceed the FAR as it stands now. The subject property, as you know, is a beachfront lot. It's adjacent to Pearl Street, even though the address is Pearl Street, it's a little bit off of Pearl Street, and accessible through that easement. The staff member who worked with the applicant on this is unfortunately ill at the moment, which is why I'm presenting on his behalf. But he worked with the applicant on this application and the development of plans for the house. You can see the house itself, plus there's a covered deck, and the way the code requires that lot coverage, we're including that covered deck at the rear of the property as part of that overall lot coverage, because it is attached to the property and included there. The applicant, as you know, is here and can better explain to you exactly what the reason for their variance. The side setback, I will point out, relates to AC mechanical equipment, which is attached to the side of the house, but is also then being covered by a balcony. So I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Judith. Dawn, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. How about you, Jim?
No.
Doug?
No, ma'am.
Jane?
I was wondering, with the street not being a street and being an easement, that if that doesn't change anything at all as far as the setback, because, go ahead.
No, the code is clear in this case because it says street or easement, that the front setback is to the street or the easement.
Okay.
Other questions at the moment, Jane?
I just, on my property, it doesn't seem to be that, but I mean, as far as the easement that we have with the 3 properties that are involved, but so I just didn't understand it to be like that. Okay.
Jim?
This proposed structure is larger than the house that was there before Ian, correct?
I'm not familiar with the previous structure, but I believe so. I know that the Eli let the homeowner know about the option, the build back option, and they chose not to go that route.
John?
That was gonna be my question, as I understood it was
I
a
have another
cottage, and
question.
was the cottage build back going to be something that would be forwarded to the applicant as an option?
I mean, they can answer that question, but I believe that to be the case. But for financial, the cost of building, they wanted the larger home.
Sure.
Jane?
So do you know if the previous house did sit forward of the setback line that
I
was the
don't,
25
I don't
foot?
know that. Maybe the applicant knows that. But in choosing not to go with the build back, then you're held to the current regulation.
Yeah. Okay, Judith, thank you very much. We'll ask the applicant, Penny. Just, you know what, do the hokey pokey or take a deep breath or just don't worry.
I would never do public speaking in school. But anyway.
Most people hate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
You can move the microphone over. There you go.
Thank you very much. My name is Penny, as previously mentioned. I bought the cottage. It was a cottage. 51 Pearl Street is one of the original cottages built in 1942. It was going to be my retirement homestead. And of course, like Ian changed everybody's lives, it changed my plans as well. If it was built today, that same cottage, it would not meet the requirements of the setback. It would be forward by 8 feet into the closer to the front property line. The road is mentioned, and I'll just reiterate, it's not actually a public street. It comes off of Pearl Street. In turn, it's an easement driveway. So the frontage is actually on an easement driveway, not a public street. The lot is fairly large. It is a large lot, but the buildable area is really small. And not only is it small, but it's irregular. One of the lot lines is on an angle, and I have this, if I may give that to you.
Just
Give it to Amy. Give them all to Amy and she'll
Just
pass them on to
really-
us.
to give it to you, but-
Thank you.
So this actually is the old survey, and I've just drawn a red line where the buildable area is, just to highlight that. As you can see, the cottage was a lot closer to the easement property line, or what they're calling the front property line, than
Oh, the red line.
the red line than the.
I don't see a red
I
line.
don't see that one.
Oh, there's one
It's
red
that.
line.
Oh, it's
Call
this.
that shape trapezoid.
Okay.
It's this.
Do you all see this?
So because of the shape of the lot and it being so
Yeah, we got
irregular, and the one side only being 58 feet, it has presented an enormous challenge to design a house that would actually fit on the lot within those setbacks and within the lot coverage. And as I was talking about earlier, is that the lot coverage, the impervious coverage on this application is under 20%. I believe it's 18%. And how the planning department advised my designer to calculate that was going to be all the structure coverage and any pavement or any driveway surface as a percentage of the entire lot, not just the buildable area. So that differs from the lot coverage calculation, and that the lot coverage calculation is just using that red outline that I've shown you. So essentially, in order to come up with a design that is financially feasible to build, that, part of my retirement plan was going to be that I had paid off the mortgage on the cottage. I was going to move down here and live here, and now that's not feasible. And the insurance I got from the cottage was just negligible. They only insure the structure, so it's just so negligible. But I am going to have to build something that is financially feasible, in the sense that I will be able to hopefully do a little bit of rental on it, so that I can, again, because I have to now I'm starting from scratch, starting over, right? And it took me a long time to just figure out if I could do it, if I could actually do it. And I think I can. So, but with challenges. I'm not sure what else I can say other than it's a large lot, but the buildable area is quite small and unique in its shape. It's located on an easement and not a public street, and it is an irregular lot. It's located between the Sarsong condominium, and then there's a house 41 Pearl, then my now vacant lot, and then the Diamond Head. And the easement that I'm looking for with the air conditioners to put, it's not for the whole house, it's just for the air conditioning, the small balcony to help protect the air conditioners is on the Surf Song parking lot side. So there's no neighbor there. It's a parking lot, so that there'd be no, and I did that to save my other, I didn't want to put it on the other side because obviously I have a neighbor that side. So having said all that, I would like to speak a little bit about the emails that I were just given, and I know that I know that many people are going to be upset when I build, and I feel very badly about it, and I truly do. I wish I didn't have to build that. If I could build that cottage on the grade, on the ground like it was before, or very close to the ground, I would. But the building requires you to now go up. We all know that, right? And we know the reasons for it. And obviously they're very good reasons for all that. So when you talk about line of sight from the Surf Song building, all those units are on the side of the building. They're not actually on the front of the building. So just by the fact of building there, I'm going to block a lot of people's views, whether it's 12 feet this way or 12 feet that way. It's really immaterial. All those views are going to be blocked. And I have another exhibit, if I may share that with the members. And I understand that, and it's unfortunate, but it can't be helped. I'm not the one making the rules as far as how high you have to build, and the people had good views over my little cottage.
Yeah.
So now that's going to change, and anyway, and I can just not help it. It's the only other option is not to build, and I don't want to be defeated that way. I want to carry on and not have a defeatist attitude. So that's really my presentation. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those.
Okay, give us a second to look at this and all right, questions for Penny. Jim, you have
No,
questions?
I'm good, thank you.
How about you, Don?
No questions.
Doug?
No, I don't have any questions.
Jane?
I do, but not for you.
Okay. Jim?
I think we all know that there's water, flooding, drainage issues on the beach. And the request that you have on the lot coverage, did you give any consideration to making up some of that difference between the 40% and the 50-some% underground storage, or anything to try and help with stormwater compensation?
Well, I did not, because the stormwater impervious calculation came out at under 20%. So that was a very good number. You're allowed up to 67%. So I did not give any consideration to that. The house was designed.
But that's including the property on the other side of the coastal control line.
That's right.
Which we heard earlier today you can't use.
You can for that calculation.
You can for that calculation.
but you
not
can't for her
storm,
calculation.
Yeah, for stormwater runoff, you are allowed to use that apparently. So,
Well, Penny, do you get the notion of this coverage, of the lot coverage concept? It is in part for stormwater, for covering the area. So even though you get, it's kind of conflicting, isn't it? That impervious. So even though you get to use your entire lot for the impervious calculation, so your number is little, that calculation you can't use the whole lot for your lot coverage calculation, but it's still the same impact. Do you follow me?
Yes.
So, so what Jim's asking you is, did you give any consideration or any thought to how you could minimize the impact of your lot coverage request?
Well, when we designed the house, we took the original footprint of 35 by 35.
Mhm.
And then on the second floor, we added square footage and had the deck below it. So the original cottage was just slightly under, well, if you take the interior wall space, it was approximately 900 and some square feet. And the first floor of that without the deck is very similar in size. So that's how the designer went about it. It wasn't until we realized that we were, after the design was done, that we realized that we were not going to be able to fit it on the lot. My designer that I had did not realize that the setback would be 25 feet. I don't know why he didn't, but he did not. So we looked at it and he said, well, apply for a variance. So
your footprint is the same with your new house as it was for the old house?
without the deck, yes, yes, very close. Very close.
But
Yeah,
there's
the-
building above it, the second
But I've added a
floor
second
is-
floor, that's right, that's right.
So when you look straight down on it, the second story has a much larger footprint. It includes the
Yeah.
deck.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Did you consider the cottage build back as being a route to go?
I wasn't
your
aware of that cottage. This is the first I heard of it was yesterday. I think when Jan mentioned the cottage build back, I had no knowledge of it. I never talked about it with the gentleman that I was dealing with.
With Eli?
With Eli. No, he might have mentioned it months and months ago.
And you might not have understood it.
Yeah, but it never was raised as an item that should be considered.
Honey, hold on a second. Did you have something to say, sir?
Yes, when I spoke with Eli about this, we did talk about the cottage code, so I know that he did mention it at some point, but when I asked him about it, what he said is that it wouldn't allow you to build your second story and that you wanted your second story.
I did want my second story, yes, but I was not explained what it actually was. So, but
Well,
yeah.
I
with that-
apologize. So
yeah,
that in my
I have a
discussions,
question.
Yeah.
Why would that be any different from the cottage lots that we are allowing on the north end? That they can come in and get a variance if they do the cottage lot and they can get a variance to put a second floor on?
That
Why?
is the same thing. This is essentially the same thing.
So why would
This
it
is-
not allow her to have a second floor?
No, the cottage build back is a not variance option. So
Okay.
if you're doing the cottage build back, you're using the same square footage as you previously had
Right.
above flood, but only a single story. So that was the agreed upon for cottage
Without a
code, but
variance, but you could get a
you can-
variance.
Yeah, which is essentially the path that she's taking here.
So Sarah, while we have you, all the items that are non-conforming with this request are triggered only by the addition of that second floor. The setbacks, all the stuff that she would get with a cottage build back doesn't count now. If she puts on the second floor, she's got to ask for all those variances or just the second floor.
I believe the cottage code requires that you have a minimum of a 5-foot setback. Let me look at the cottage code real quick again and
Wouldn't that be
refresh
pertinent?
myself, but
Yes.
I don't know that it is because at the end of the day, it won't allow her to have the second story, which is the square footage she's indicating that she does need.
And again,
but I can,
I just think common sense conversation is around, we're talking about the height of the building now as being the variable. Everything else, without that second thing, she could rebuild back up to the right over floodplain levels. So we're talking about a structure that's a little taller, a story taller. And I don't know about the 5 foot, you'll have to check on that, but if that's singularly the variance, and therefore all the rest of the variance requests are triggered by that additional square footage, it changes my mind about how I see this request. I'm just going through that process.
Is there a place that you could put the air conditioner underneath the building and still have it elevated and meet the setbacks or the code for the air conditioner?
Yes, I could change that location.
So that could eliminate the 1 4.5 foot setback for the mechanical equipment. So then what we are just talking about is that. And
But it's not just the second floor, it's the second floor and the deck.
that's,
That deck triggers an expansion also.
can that be done as an
That's
accessory
basically-
and,
It's
Um,
covered by the second floor.
It
though.
is.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that's
It
true.
is.
Okay, okay.
It's
Sorry.
under the footprint of
Of
the
the
second.
second
The
floor.
second floor is.
I see, okay.
basically
Larger.
the
Oh,
footprint.
right,
There you
right,
go.
right.
So one of the other items that I discussed with Eli was that as far as the front yard setback goes, if I were not asking for this variance and if I designed it so the deck was at the front of the house, then I would not require a variance because apparently you're allowed to do a 10-foot deck at the front of the house
And your front is street.
and my front is street. So at the end of the day, it's just kind of the same thing, but
Oh,
Reverse.
yes, but it's not.
but it's
Yeah.
front. Yeah.
It's not because it's covered by the second floor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yes, that
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
difference.
Also, whoever's presenting, I would like, from the page 326, the diagram that is there on the lot next door, can you tell me if that garage is going to be built on that property? Next door, it looks like it's very forward of whatever her building is going to be. Not yet.
No, not yet. You'll have your chance though.
I don't know the full packet, so I apologize, I don't know the exact page number. My understanding is that the house that is next door, that is in construction now, did not need a variance.
Okay, but there is a garage on the plan that is completely forward of this building towards the easement that looks like it's got a 4-foot separation to the easement.
The house that's beside me is not a new build. It's just a renovation. It's been existing there
Oh.
for many years.
I think what you're seeing on the plans is
The former,
the former structure. That's not what you're,
So that garage is not going to be built.
it's not there.
It's not there.
Was the original 35-foot by 35-foot house, did it also have like the 12-foot setback that you're showing now? Was that
It-
wall in the same place?
It was not exactly, no, it was 17 feet, 17
Okay.
from that front line, but it was 5 feet back off the CCL. That's where the difference is, off the construction control line.
Okay, do we have any other questions for Penny at the moment? We can bring her back up, but we could hear some public comment.
One more question. Can you build directly to the CCL line?
Yes, apparently so. I'm not an expert, but I've been told that you can. You just can't go over the CCL
right.
line. So the way that it's been plotted on the tentative plot plan was we allowed a 1 foot grace, for lack of a better word, to allow.
So
just
that's only
various-
1 foot there on the left-hand side of, well, the right-hand side as you're looking at the golf. There's only 1 foot there?
Yes.
It looks like there's more room to move back. It just seems with the building next door being able to be so much more forward, it surprises me that the deck is such a conflict because, it's clearly totally blocking your view to the south, that it just, I don't know.
Penny, why don't you just sit in that front seat right there? Don't scoot all the way to the back. We'll call you back up. Okay, I'm gonna open public comment. Is there anybody who'd like to comment? Yes, sir. You would state your name for the record and whether or not you've been sworn in.
Yes, William Mizell. I live at Sursong. I'm the president of the HOA there. A couple things, and it's not the height that we're worried about, it's the setback coming closer to our property because it's our easement that she is on that allows her to get into her place. Moving that back will block a whole lot more views. And and access on that. But I want to get to one thing first. You're talking about 55 feet in the drainage. I've got a picture of it with nothing on it. This was a rain the other day, what our property looks like without 55 square foot on there. I don't have, so if you want to pass that around, that's the way it is today. I'd also like to see the information that she provided you guys, because we were not privy to that, just she's handed that out. Am I allowed to see that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I?
You
can I
can
see
look
it?
at, you can look at mine.
Yeah, because I'm not sure what she handed you, and I just kind of like to, before we testify. But yeah, the biggest thing is that setback. And again, well, you can look at the drainage. So if you're gonna put 55% on that, you got a real problem there. And I don't think there was anything that I saw in the plans designed to help us out on that. You said earlier about Bonita Springs Road, exactly what this is gonna be. If you got 55 foot out there, or 55% blockage on that, you know, it's supposed to be for us owners, people on Estero, whatever, to see the golf. You've totally blocked that out. We're not gonna be able to see that. But you can see on the drainage here. She also said that all the houses are on the side there. That's not true. We have
Of course you have.
units on the very front. So, yeah, so that was an incorrect statement on that. But that's the biggest thing is currently they use our parking lot already because they don't have enough room with that. So they're impeding on our parking lot. And if they close it down to 12 foot or whatever, then that's gonna be a problem on our property. So I don't, for that alone, and bringing it back away from the, onto our easement or close to our easement will just, reduce the visual on it. We know 3 stories. We know when we bought those that's a possibility. So that has nothing to do with it. But again, putting it back, our C, D, and E stacks, they'll lose their view. And that's one of the big things on that.
Thank you very much for your
All right.
comments.
All right,
We
thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
My turn.
Mhm.
I'm Nick Dundee. I'm wearing scarlet and gray, sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Nick Dundee, I'm the appointed officer, registered agent, so I got 2 of the postcards. The agenda packet that had the site plan, or I guess I should say the survey,
Yes, sir.
is 18 years old. So that's why I wanted to comment, because you
Okay.
can't tell what the house on 41 Pearl Street is. And it's okay, you know, but I am, as registered agent, I'm gonna comment like Bill, we are totally opposed, just to that front setback. The rules are 25 foot, and we put our fence in by our pool, and we were told we wanted to go 20, and we were told, no, the rules are 25. Doesn't matter if it's a private road, which Pearl Street is a private road. It was abandoned, or whatever, it's not abandoned.
Vacated.
Vacated.
Vacated many years ago, so we have to maintain that, the pavement. That easement is the same thing. The rules don't say that it matters if it is a private road or public road. We want Penny to play by the rules, just like we did. And you're gonna build a beautiful house, and it's gonna look great. It just, our big objection is that 25 foot, because it's gonna screw up our view corridors for C deck. It's gonna be a parking nightmare. It's gonna be a flooding issue, and like they'll have the pictures. And just play by the rules. Just do the side setback for the air conditioning equipment. We thought that's a great consideration for Jamie's house. That, I mean, if you want to do that, and if you can break that out as a variance, we can live with that. The 55% rule, if she goes back with going back to 25 foot instead of 12 foot, she'll probably meet the back to the 40-some%. But yeah, our big issue is the front setback. Thank you. And staff apparently recommends denial.
Thank you very much.
Sir, can I bring you right back up?
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
clarify for the record, you're the appointed officer and registered agent for what?
For Surf Song Condo Association.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay.
And Bill and I are 2 out of the 3 residents that live there year round, so there's not many that live there year round.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anybody else who has public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the, oh,
Yep.
and Albert.
I didn't stand up earlier. I was just listening in, so I'm gonna just make a couple comments. Similar to
Albert,
other
say your
projects.
name for the record.
Sure, Albert Danvers, Studio AD architect. I am not her
Were
agent.
you sworn in?
I didn't. I was
No.
just listening in.
She can swear you in real quick.
If I find my script, I can.
Just swear.
Today.
And choose your words carefully.
November, I will.
If you'll raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right.
I
He's
do.
been sworn.
Just a couple of comments as well too. I know it's really challenging to build houses, and people are used to things that were there before, and things that have to change and evolve. So, a couple of things I've listened into, and just to clarify, I'm not her architect, I'm not her agent. Just listening into this, these are similar things that we're hearing from other clients. These are similar things we're going to be coming to you as well for other projects. So, a lot of similarities. Building obviously in the DEP, bottom beam is 19.333 feet. Existing grade is about roughly 4 or 5 in that area. It can vary. So the bottom of the beam of any brand new home is already going to be 14 feet off the ground. The beam and the floor thickness adds another 2 feet to that, so you're 16 feet. The amount of stairs you need to get to that first elevated floor sucks up a lot of real estate. So by looking at her floor plans and you go to a 25-foot setback, you take an extra 12 more feet off of that house, you can visualize what happens to the house, both on the second and third floor. You need 26 risers to get to that elevation. Obviously this is an RM zoning district, so your height doesn't start to the bottom of the beam from FEMA, and your 35-foot height restriction, that's a very tall house and we built next to that. Obviously the house next door is getting repaired right now directly to the east of hers. That's an older home, but it's newer compared to older homes on the beach. I think putting the AC equipment on a north side makes sense because I think the intent for a lot of jurisdictions that have these restrictions for air conditioning systems not going to set back all came out of noise and visibility. Well, you're facing Diamond Head. It's an open area as well too. So I think they're doing a perfect job as not putting on the neighbor side so it doesn't bounce between the buildings. But it has to be elevated. I know the comment came up earlier, can we put it into the building? You cannot.
Okay.
You have to be at that 19.33 feet for any mechanical equipment, generator, air conditioning. Meters can go down low, that's different. But mechanical has to be that air. So there's no choice to put that underneath the building.
Okay, thanks.
The other thing is stormwater. Although you're allowed to use a whole lot area that goes again past this line here towards the Gulf, you got to understand that all that sand, when it rains, it goes right through. Okay. No stormwater design is going to be approved in her building permit process unless it's designed to contain what your regulations say within the buildable area. No stormwater system can go into that EC zoning. There's lots of engineering ways that can be done. I don't think that should be a subject to be brought up right now because again, when she goes through permitting, her stormwater engineer had to design something. We do this on like in commercial buildings. I'm not sure what the Whale's doing for stormwater, but a lot of buildings have zero lot coverage or zero areas of pervious. They do underground chambers. There's ways to control that water so it doesn't flood your neighbor. To assume that it can't be done, plus you never get CO if it doesn't work that way. We all have these berms. We all are doing this right now. You can't dump your storm water into your adjacent properties at all. Other jurisdictions let you do that. You guys do not, which is good because you're a barrier island. I feel the front setback, that's something you guys can discuss in itself, but it does detrimentally hurt that floor plan. If you look at that, you take another 12 foot out of that footprint. Stairs suck up a lot of real estate as well too these days. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing none, we close public comment. Hold on, Penny. Any other questions for staff? Maybe we'll have another one. Penny, you have follow-up comment? Any other questions for Penny also? Go ahead, Penny.
I just wanted to comment on the picture that was presented on the telephone today. That was a picture of the current condition of the lot. A lot of the sand, when the building was swept away, it took a lot of the sand with it as well. And there is quite a deep hole in the lot. And that is where the puddle is right now. That's not typical of that lot. And that will be, of course, remedied when we do the new build. So I just wanted to comment on that. The other thing I wanted to comment on the driveway easement. I've been there for 10 years and never have I ever parked on the driveway easement nor encroached on their property whatsoever, except for the one time when we were doing the cleanup after the hurricane. I did put my pile of debris onto Pearl Street for pickup with the, for the town to pick it up. It's mostly contractors that are doing the work next door that are parking in their parking lot and parking on the easement. But
Honey, can I ask you a question about that easement? It was referred to as Surf Song's easement. Is it an easement that, I mean, it seems to me that easement probably belongs to all these properties. Or is it simply an easement for Surf Song?
it's not simply an easement for Surf Song. The legality of ownership, I'm not aware of. I don't know, so I can't speak to that. But I do know that my lawyer said I have every right to use the easement. The easement is there to access these properties.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Any further questions for Penny? Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Anita, can I make a comment?
I'm sorry?
Done.
Oh, Dawn,
Can I
yes,
make a
Dawn,
comment? Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, just, I have the, liberty of sitting at my computer and looking, and I'm looking at, a Google Earth image, and,
Yep.
I'm a little confused because I can see in the Google Earth image, it looks like the outline or foundation or walls of this cottage, it looks like. And then, when I look at the drawing, I'm puzzled because it looks like if that's the pool that's on Estero Boulevard, that is Surf Songs.
Yeah.
It looks like a lot farther back. So is that another lot there, or?
It's
are
a
we
parking
setting
lot.
back off of the,
It's a parking lot.
oh, okay. Okay, because it didn't.
It's
okay,
not a
it looks
parking
like
lot?
sand.
I don't think so.
No,
It looks like sand to me, like there's asphalt to the south. The pool is directly on Estero. I should just share my screen.
share your screen. And you have to sit down.
You can't answer.
Hold on.
I don't know.
Are you going to show us what you're looking at, Dawn?
I'm trying to. I don't use Zoom very often. I use Teams, so I'm trying to figure out where I can share. There it is. Sorry. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, if you look at the picture that she gave us with the red triangle on it or whatever, that has a pretty good visual above for Google, that one.
Yes.
Can anyone see that yet?
Yep.
Okay, see the pool here
Mm-hmm.
on Estero?
Yep.
This doesn't look like a parking lot. This looks like, I don't know what that is. It's just sand. I don't know if it's vacant space or what, but if you zoom in, you can kind of see the footprint. I believe this is the footprint of her cottage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So if we're talking about 25 feet, I can't imagine that's much past where if everybody can see my cursor is, past the RV there. I'm just trying to figure out why. Trying to figure out what the concern is. It looks like this is like someone, I think Jane said, this house here is sticking out and is existing is to the south. Of course, you've got Gullwing parking lot and pool to the north.
Not Gullwing, it's
Diamond
Head.
Not Gullwing, sorry, Diamond Head.
Diamond
sorry.
Head.
Yeah, so anyway, I don't know if that helps anyone, but for me, I kind of didn't see it from the drawing, but with the pool way up here on Estero, it seems like I don't know what that is, but that's gotta be 100, maybe 100, maybe not quite that much, 75 feet or so
Mhm.
They're saying 41 feet. No?
from the,
41 Pearl. That's a
Oh,
house.
41
That's
Pearl.
another property. That's not our property.
Oh,
the 51 Pearl is the address we're looking at, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I just put in 51 Pearl Street, Fort Myers Beach, and I
Right.
think this is it right here.
That
Right.
is it.
Someone
That's
confirm
correct.
this?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, so if you look from the front of where that foundation was to their pool, I'm just, again, I would have expected there was a house there before or something, but it just looks like a bunch of open space. So I'm just trying to figure out why there was a a view concern? Because this is probably going to be as taller. This looks like a raised structure here,
Yes.
the one next door.
Exactly.
Can I make a clarification?
Yes.
Sure.
There is a piece of property behind the pool, from Estero. There's the pool, and then there's property behind it that is owned by a separate entity. Then there is the Surf Song, what appears to be a parking place or a parking lot area that's about 61, when I measure on GIS, it appears to be about 61 feet from that property to the 51 Pearl and 41 Pearl.
Is that a buildable site?
No, that's an area where it looks like parking is available, and that's part of the easement.
Don, what I heard from the condo association was not specific to the height. It was moving the building towards Estero and therefore creating a new blocked corridor regardless of the height. So that's a distinction that I heard. I thought I heard the
I agree.
owners
I
indicate.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would just want to comment that we're only talking about a 5-foot difference from what,
Allowed to build back in.
Right.
from what she had before.
From what she, can you enlarge that a little bit more, Don?
Where her place is?
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
you
that-
also want to give the property owner the opportunity to comment on that?
Right.
If
So
she has anything to
that
add.
appears to be where the structure used to be, the footprint, so you can see that it is forward of that other building.
Yeah, that building is.
Penny, did you have a
obviously,
comment on this picture?
Yes, that used to be my lovely little cottage that you see there on just with the pylons still there. Where you can see the trailer, where the trailer's parked and the truck, that's actually on the easement. Surf Song did initially allow me to park my trailer there while I got the lot cleaned up, and then now the trailer's been moved onto my lot. But to comment on behind the pool, there's another lot. It used to be the Jewel Box Cottage. And that is a lot that is buildable, and that they are likely going to be coming to you. I don't know, but if you can go further out, not that pool, that's the Surf Song pool. But sorry, that was the Diamond Head Bowl, the Surf Song pool that's on Estero. Right
here.
beside that is another lot. And then there's the parking lot, then the easement, and then my property. We do have some really good pictures. Yeah.
Okay. Let's rein this back in with pictures and everything else, and actually look at the request before us. Okay. Thank you, Penny.
Madam Chair, during the presentation, I don't know that we emphasized what the criteria was when staff was giving their recommendation.
Go ahead.
As I mentioned, your decision is going to be based on, is there evidence to satisfy the criteria that's in your code? So if we could have staff restate those.
The criteria, Judith, would you like to state the criteria?
Yes. There are 5 criteria under findings and conclusions section of the staff report that you are asked to review and consider in making a determination. The first.
Use the microphone, please.
Is this not on? No.
It doesn't seem
You
like
can't
it's
put it-
podium.
Put it super close.
There you go.
So as I said, there are 5 criteria. The first, there are/are not exceptional or extraordinary conditions or circumstances that are inherent to the property in question, or that the request is/is not for a de minimis variance under circumstances or conditions where rigid compliance is not essential to protect public property. Staff felt that the choices made here are design choices, not necessarily particular to this lot, and do not represent the de minimis variance that would be possible to create a home on this lot. B, that the conditions justifying the variance are/are not the result of actions the applicant has taken after the adoption of the regulation in question. The conditions justifying the variance are the result of the applicant's design choices. So again, that is part of the criteria that led staff to recommend denial of the variance. C, that the variance granted is/is not the minimum variance that will relieve the applicant of an unreasonable burden caused by the application of the regulation in question. Again, the design of the home could be smaller, and so we did not feel that this represented the de minimis options available. D, that the granting of the variance will/will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. In this case, staff did not believe that detrimental. I don't know if this is going in and out. That granting this variance is not necessarily detrimental, as the applicant stated, the mechanical equipment is placed on the side of the home that is abutting the Diamond Head Resort and not the immediate single-family neighbor. But you have heard from members of the public regarding views and such. Further down in D, that the granting of the variance will/will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. The proposed location of the single-family residence being 12 feet from the front property line will be closer to the easement than the neighboring property to the east, and the plane of the homes would not match along that easement, and potentially views could be negatively impacted. The previous home being 1 story from grade, even if it was set forward, would not have had the same impacts as a 3-story larger structure set in the same location. That the granting of the variance will not, did I read that one already? Injurious to the neighborhood, otherwise detrimental. The increase in building coverage would cause the home to have more square footage under roof, which would create more massing of the structure. However, the site would not exceed the maximum 67% impervious as required by the code. Moving on to E, that the conditions or circumstances on the specific piece of property for which the variance is sought are/are not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make it more reasonable and practical to amend the regulation in question. The conditions or circumstances on this specific property for which a variance is sought are not general in nature and do not warrant a code change. So due to those considerations, staff recommended denial.
Thank you, Judith, very much. Is there any discussion on this further? And if not, may I have a motion, please?
I have a little bit of discussion, if I may.
Please.
I think I agree with the staff recommendation. I think the owner should consider the cottage build-back policy for this piece of property, which is small and difficult, and it had a cottage on it. And with the cottage build-back policy, we have relaxed, or to allow people to build back a cottage. But this applicant is asking to build back a 4-bedroom house, not a cottage. And I don't think I have to agree with the staff recommendation.
Is that regarding, I just have a question for clarification. I think staff had several of the criteria that they found were not present. However, I think compatibility with the neighbors. Did you agree with all of staff's recommendations regarding the criteria, or is there a specific one?
I agreed with all of them. I actually agree that it's probably not a hardship on the neighbors, but I just, I think the cottage build back is a more appropriate avenue for the owner on this piece of property.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes. If they do a cottage build back, can they get the same footprint forward of where they were so that they can, 900 square feet on the base level of house, even though it is elevated, it is not a large house, even though you're going to have a second floor. Can they get the same space so that they could have a porch on the back? No?
So the cottage code, it says that The modifications will be the minimum required to allow a home with a footprint of the same square footage as was previously legally constructed on that property and 2 stories in height above flood elevation with no enclosure below base flood elevation. So this, no, I apologize, it's 1 story over flood elevation. And that the modified setbacks may not be less than 5 feet. And that the modified setbacks may not be encroached by mechanical equipment. So your specific question was regarding if they could build back. It looks, I mean, so if they had a 33 by 30 structure plus deck, I mean, so they'd get the same interior square footage. That's 990 square feet. That is the total interior area, because the bottom floor cannot be enclosed. They can only have 1 story above flood. But this is a by right allowance, is the
Correct.
cottage, you know, so,
Correct.
and, so they would only be allowed to build a single story.
But they could do a
990.
variance.
That's what they're here for.
I know, but they could
No.
do a variance to the build back.
But she could ask for a variance to do a 2-story.
But you know what?
That's-
I'm gonna stop this because it's not what's before us. And you know, so my apologies to the audience too, and people who are watching us at home. Our desire is so strong to help property owners that we end up involved in this conversation, and it's not what's before us. What's before us is this particular request, and in this particular instance, Penny is going to have the option to go before the town council. If it's denied here, she can go before the town council and plead her case there. But we can't continue to redesign her project for
Okay,
her.
my,
So-
I'll just go back to the fact that I do feel that it is an unusual lot, and it is a small lot with small buildable area. So I think it does meet the criteria for the variance in the fact that it is not a standard lot to build on. And the angles make it very difficult. I don't think you could go much less than 900 square feet to have a reasonable house to start with, even if you had that as your only floor. So I do feel that there is reason to consider. And, because once again, 26 steps going up to that house has to go somewhere, and that takes up an awful lot of land space. And the fact that the house was forward of the 25-foot setback previously gives me cause to consider that it's not necessarily something that she created, but that's what she had before. So those are my views on that.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I agree with the staff report. I think that the mechanical equipment is actually a smart decision and
Mhm.
is beneficial to the project. I think the concern is just moving it back and extending it from 35 feet to an additional 15 feet on the footprint. That is, I think, the real crux of the matter. And to my view, the staff's recommendations are correct. It's a design choice to build a larger footprint than was previously there.
Would you like to make a motion, John?
Yeah, I would like to move to deny the variance request
And would that be for the reasons as set forth in the staff
for the
report?
reasons as set forth in the staff report, correct?
Thank you.
I
Is
would
there a
second that,
second?
yes.
There's a motion, there's a second. Is there, Sarah?
For clarification, there's 3 different variances.
It's all
All of
inclusive.
All inclusive, yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, your vote, John?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Jane?
I'm going to go with nay.
Jim?
Aye.
Aye. Penny, I'm sorry, you're going to go on to the town council and plead your case there. Okay, thank you very much. The motion, the variance is denied. Oh, I
Can I request a break?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
So who jinxed it?